Today we're covering a big question. Did LSAC actually mess up the April LSAT scores? Because if they did, that's huge. People's entire law school futures are on the line. But before you panic or you start emailing admissions in a frenzy, stick around. Today we're going to uncover the truth behind the April LSAT score drops that so many test takers are freaking out about. I'll share the real reasons why your score may have tanked and reveal the steps you can take to bounce back even stronger. Now let me give you a quick heads up on what we're covering, why some students saw shocking score drops, and if LSAC's to blame, the surprising role of LSAT score inflation and selection bias, a simple, powerful plan to help you regain your confidence and boost your score, and how to protect yourself against the fear and frustration that come with unexpected results. My goal for you is that by the end of this video, you'll feel so much clearer about what actually happened in April and what you can do about it. Imagine instead walking into your next LSAT attempt armed with that clarity, knowing you're not at the mercy of any messed up scoring anomalies, you'll have a roadmap for success, and you'll avoid wasting hours on guesswork or conspiracy theories. First, for those who don't know me, my name is Steve Schwartz. I've been teaching the LSAT since 2005, and I've seen my share of LSAT controversies and curveball surprises. Back when I started, I had a 152, and I raised it up to a 175 on test day, so trust me, I know how brutal it can feel to see a score that's lower than what you wanted or expected. But if there's any silver lining here, it's that you have the power to turn things around. In fact, many of my own students have used the exact strategies I'm about to share to bounce back from shocking score drops. Some of them gained 10, 20, even 30 points on subsequent retakes. So let's get into it. First, let's talk about the rumor that LSAC somehow messed up the April scores. Most students who saw a drop are panicking that LSAC somehow botched the scoring process. You might have been around a 165 in your practice tests, maybe even 170 plus, but suddenly your official score is 10, 15, even 20 points lower. That is, of course, brutal, and it is natural to assume something shady went down because your PT track record looked so good. But let's table that thought for just a moment. Before we go around blaming LSAC, let's look at a few factors that could be contributing to the massive freakout. First is selection bias. You've probably seen the frenzy on social media or the forums. Everyone's complaining, this must mean the entire test was misscored. But let's be real. Think about who actually takes the time to post. First, you have people who are thrilled with their scores and they want to tell the world about their successes. Then at the other extreme, you have people who are devastated because they think something went horribly wrong. The folks who scored more or less what they expected, they often don't feel compelled to share their stories. Their outcomes are normal, so they don't generate big reactions online. This creates a twisted perception. You see the extreme highs and the extreme lows, and it makes you feel like the test is in total chaos, even when the truth might be far more balanced. So, is this actually a scoring conspiracy, or is it selection bias turning small numbers of dissatisfied people into a massive wave on social media? Now, another big factor is that LSAT scores overall have been creeping up in recent years. Top law schools' medians are hitting record highs. You've got to now score a 175 to be in the 99th percentile, but it used to be only a 173. Now, this surge in overall performance means two big things. First, competition is higher, so even a good raw score might not convert to the scaled score you've been aiming for. Second, if you've been studying with older exams or older norms in mind, your expectations for scaled scores may not match today's reality. Of course, this doesn't mean LSAC's out to get you, but it might mean your official score ends up lower than what your practice test suggested, especially if you were using old conversion charts that no longer reflect the LSAT in 2025. So keep this in mind before assuming that your final official score is a mistake. But, of course, let's address the main elephant in the room. Could LSAC's scaling for April have been off somehow? Of course, it's theoretically possible that in any given test administration, the curve or scale feels more severe. But historically speaking, LSAC is highly consistent in aligning each test difficulty with a fair scale. I've watched students go through 20 years worth of LSATs. Actual scoring mishaps are extremely rare and nearly always corrected promptly if they ever happen. They have strong quality control systems in place, so from my perspective, An error is technically possible, but extremely unlikely. Now, maybe your confidence after test day misled you somehow. Maybe you left the exam feeling like you crushed it, but then you got blindsided when your score arrived. Let's talk about the phenomenon of false confidence. Sometimes, the LSAT feels easy in certain areas, leading you to underestimate your mistakes. You might have blind spots. If you guessed on certain question types, but felt good about them, you could have a skewed perception of how you actually did. And maybe your practice tests weren't consistent with the actual conditions of test day. Any small differences in the environment, the timing, or your focus could cause big swings in official scores. Now, I've seen students who always did their practice tests in separate 35-minute chunks because they only had time to do one section at a time, but then on test day, they had to maintain focus over the entire test in one sitting. That difference alone could be 10, 15, maybe even 20 points. Now, I mentioned some of my students who overcame big score drops. For example, one student came to me after seeing a sudden 12-point dip from her practice test average. She was devastated, convinced the test was somehow rigged against her, but once we dug into her study habits, we found that her practice environment was too relaxed. She wasn't really simulating the mental stamina required for the real thing. But with just 6 weeks of structured and realistic prep, she retook the LSAT and scored 10 points higher than her practice test average. That's the kind of transformation that you can achieve if you follow a systematic plan. So now I want to give you a clear roadmap to prevent the same mistakes and reclaim the upper hand on your LSAT retake, and a proven strategy to keep your confidence up so you don't sabotage your next attempt. We'll talk about the actionable steps you can take if your score dropped unexpectedly, and I'll give you a mental reboot strategy crucial to avoiding panic-driven errors on your retake. Now let's talk about how to bounce back if your score actually dropped. First thing is to decide whether you should retake. Remember that, of course, law schools only care about the highest score you have on record, and so if April was a dud, you can still redeem yourself with a higher score. No harm done. They won't penalize you for a lower attempt. But when you're retaking, you've got to reevaluate your prep strategy. You want to pinpoint the weak areas that caused your score to dip. Maybe you gave yourself too many breaks during your practice. Maybe you ignored certain question types, or maybe you weren't doing enough full-length timed practice tests. And of course, you want to control your practice test environment, take them just like the real thing. Now, one of my students, David, was stuck around a 153, and after a disappointing official score, he realized he had never built real endurance with full practice tests. When he brought us in for structured, personalized one-on-one coaching, we were able to quickly ID his time sync issues and streamline his study plan. As a result, he hit a 164 on his next attempt, an 11-point increase, and that changed his entire law school application outlook. If you want that kind of transformation for yourself, you can check out the links below to book a call with my team. We'd be glad to help you out. And a lot of students find it's a real game changer when you have someone guiding you every step of the way. Now, of course, LSAC does offer a score audit option if you truly believe there's been a mistake. It's rare, and the chances of finding an actual error are minuscule. Of course, keep in mind, there's a fee associated with it, and if they discover an error, your score could go either up or down. Now, if you study the right way for your LSAT retake, you could go in with a bulletproof game plan. No second guessing, no panic about the unknown. You will have already ID'd every gap in your prep, methodically fixed them, and built the endurance to thrive under the real pressures of the exam, because your practice test scores will actually mirror your official potential because you're now practicing under real conditions. That's the picture of confidence and readiness, and that's what we're aiming for here. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, I don't have the time or energy to retake, I get it. You might have a full-time job, personal commitments, or you're just feeling drained. But imagine the difference an optimized study plan could make. Even if you only have 2 hours a day, those 2 hours, when used effectively, can elevate your next score in a big way. Remember that a single off day doesn't mean you're doomed to repeat that outcome. If you can adjust your approach, you'll get different results. It's really that simple. Now, to make this even easier for you, I've put together a free, easy LSAT cheat sheet with my top tips for saving time, boosting accuracy, and managing stress on test day. You can grab it using the link below, and again, it's 100% free. So, did LSAC really mess up the April LSAT scores? Probably not. The more likely culprits are selection bias, evolving score distributions, and prep strategies that didn't fully align with what test day is actually like. The good news is that you're not helpless, you can retake, and benefit from the policy that law schools only take the highest score into consideration, you can optimize your studying, rebuild your confidence, and come back swinging. One test does not define your law school journey. Your perseverance and strategy do. Anyway, folks, that's all for now. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.